Two teenage boys tossed in a world of superhero responsibilities. They both glow bluish aura when they power up. They're both quirky and sometimes corny. So yeah, they're pretty similar. Honestly, this video was simply made because I thought it was a cool topic and I wanted an excuse to finally scale Deku, since of course I've gotten asked about his scalings many times. So without further ado, let's begin. I'll start with Aang first, since he's by far the easiest to scale, and I already made an in-depth video on where he scales in comparison to Kid Naruto, which you guys should really check out, by the way. However, the crutch of my scaling really comes from Avatar Aang's avatar state, but specifically his past lives known as Karuk and Kyoshi. In the novels, it's directly stated that some random earthbender avatar could throw landmass left and right at a whim, which is implied to be independent of the avatar state. Kyoshi obviously isn't some random avatar. Being so proficient with earthbending, she was able to preserve her life until she was about 230 years old, and she was also called one of the most powerful earthbenders and avatars to ever exist. Land masses, in many definitions, oftentimes refers to either a large body of land or a continent. This is consistent as Avatar Karuk, who is weaker than Avatar Kyoshi, is able to sink basic and random islands while not even in control of the Avatar state, while Avatar Kyoshi herself is able to break apart a large portion of a landmass in order to create Kyoshi Island with a simple glimpse of the Avatar state during her conflict with Chin the Conqueror during the flashback. This is further consistent, seeing how it's stated many times that the past lives amplify an avatar's strength, and this is shown when we have characters like Roku and Kyoshi being able to speak through Aang. So Aang would be anywhere from island level to continental, depending on your interpretation of where the feats scale, given the definition of what a landmass is. Feats like this are actually implied to be done regularly, at least in the Avatar novels, with characters like a random teenager being able to break apart mountains with her lost power. And we then have Kyoshi again when she's conjured through Aang, creating a storm that was calced at around city level, and this was through her mere presence alone. And like I said, Aang would scale to this and above the feat since he has her power, and since the power of the past lives are accumulative. If you really want to wank Aang, independent from using the Hinduism scaling I've gone over at the end of my Naruto vs Aang video, Aang should scale to the moon and water spirits known as Tui and La. The avatar is stated to wield vast cosmic energies and to be the strongest bender in the universe. By virtue of this, Aang should scale above the ocean and moon spirits. The reason why this would scale to Aang and is impressive is because when the moon spirit is presumably killed by Fire General Zhao, all the waterbenders lose their abilities to bend, and the moon is stated to lose all of its power. Aang is then able to fuse with the ocean spirit, using himself as an engine for it to channel its power through. Even though he did fuse with her, Aang should scale above this pretty casually, as within his avatar state, he's powered by one of the two twin almighty spirits known as Rava and Vatsu. However, I would probably use almighty spirits or the word almighty with a grain of salt, as while I do think she's stronger than Tui and La, I don't think she is the strongest spirit. Although like I said, this line of scaling is a bit contentious, and I much more prefer the large island level through continental scaling I provided prior. When it comes to speed and abilities, Aang at a baseline should be massively hypersonic through relativistic, with many characters like Zuko, Azula, and Iroh being able to not only react to but redirect lightning, and Aang is able to do this while holding back. It's actually stated that the lightning that Ozai shot at Aang was so powerful that if Zuko, who redirected Ozai's lightning in the palace, were to try and mimic the same feat again, he would get one-shotted. And of course, this is due to the power of the comet that was amping all firebenders. Aang, then in his avatar state, should get a potential hundreds of times stronger, depending on if you think each avatar that builds on the cycle is at least a 2 times amp or multiplier or not. But then again, there is no official multiplier, and this is all mostly speculation and, well, headcanon. Aang's main set of abilities are mainly predicated around his ability to bend all 4 of the elements, as well as their subset abilities he attains from his past lives, such as Yang Chen being able to suffocate her opponents by sucking the air out of their lungs like a vacuum, or Kyoshi being able to freeze her opponent's lungs, although she does need direct contact for this ability to work. Aang also has the ability of energy or spirit bending, which is the process by which using the chakra points in a person's body to block and subsequently remove their power or bending. If you think something like the One for All quirk is an ability or power that is able to be removed, then Aang should be able to remove it. if given the chance, although this is pretty contentious. Now, at first glance, it may seem as though Aang should eclipse Deku's power and dare I say the entirety of the verse, but I think you'll be surprised with just how much the series is downplayed in terms of strength and speed. However, Deku, once he attains some mastery over his gifted power of One For All, kind of performs so over the top and flat out outlandish feats I didn't even think was possible for the series. During the MyHeroAcademia Heroes Rising movie, both Deku and Bakugo are able to channel their power of One For All to defeat a character known as Nine. In doing this, they're able to one-shot him and disperse the storm doing so. This tempest of a storm that they dispersed is calced to around country level all the way to continental. Although, do keep in mind that Deku doesn't have One For All mastered at this point, and this was with the aid of Bakugo. Deku then in the war arc is able to tangle with endgame Shigaraki. Shigaraki survived Stars and Stripes' fist bump to the earth that was also count to around island level. For those still not convinced, we can scale Deku to All Might Prime, which we know he does scale above due to him scaling above Shigaraki. All Might, in his prime, should be 60 times stronger than the one that we see in the beginning of the series, who fights a Nomu, using a basic equation of 300 divided by 5. The 300 is from the punches he used to kill the aforementioned Nomu, and the 5 is the amount of punches he would have needed in his prime in comparison to now. This is only increased via Fa Jin sharding the combined energy of Detroit Smash Quintuple, making it released 5 times stronger than that of normal. So Deku should consistently be around country level all the way up to continental, even without the Heroes Rising movie, if you don't think that it's canon. Even if you don't want to believe that end of series Deku should be stronger than that of All Might's Prime, even though that's his whole narrative, then we can simply use the feats Deku performs during the war arc, such as, like I said, the Gear Shift Detroit Smash Quintuple that Fa Jin amped, which even at a low ball would be country level, which is without the 5 times amp, and at the highest large country or about continental. Either one is fine and is generally accepted, at least without the downplay that comes with the series. Deku's speed is a bit convoluted and dare I say unknown, but in their fight with Shigaraki, Stars and Stripes is able to react to laser cannons from the jets that she was riding. These lasers are actually so fast that they hit Shigaraki directly, who by this time is comparatively to a prime All Might. This light speed scaling should be very consistent as well, as all of class of 1A should be able to at the very least be comparable to the untrained characters from the spin-off series called Vigilantes, who have reacted to and blocked legitimate light speed based lasers in the spin-off manga prior to the feats we see in Shigaraki's fight against Stars and Stripes. Deku's main power comes from his quirk known as One For All. One For All is a power that is passed down from generation to generation, kind of like the Avatar state, that also grows throughout time. As I said, Aang has the ability of spirit bending that allows him to block and remove abilities. However, with One For All, if someone tries to steal his power, they need the will and malicious intent powerful enough to overpower both wills of Deku and the collective consciousness within One For All. Meaning things like Aang's energy bending might not work depending on if he thinks Aang's will is superior to Deku. However, do note that Aang's will during his fight with Ozai was stated to be unmovable and indomitable in order to overpower Ozai's. If you believe this, then Aang should be able to block Deku's abilities, at least under the standard battle assumptions we use in versus battles. But I'll leave this up to your interpretation of the statements and feats that are presented. Deku's other abilities are things such as his precognition and his abilities to fly using his other quirks. One of Deku's more notable quirks that I think Aang would have some trouble with is the quirk known as Fa Jin I mentioned prior. Fa Jin allows Deku to replicate his strength and speed he has at 100% full cowling by storing the kinetic energy he accumulates while in motion. When he releases the said stored energy, he can move and attack at up to 100% full cowling, without actually expanding the effort required to maintain 100% of said power. He can activate Fa Jin anytime he is moving, and he can move at faster speeds and hit harder the longer he activates it. Meaning, if Deku's Detroit Smash was at, let's say, 50%, he could then amp it by 2 times and make it stronger to 100%. And the same would also be applicable to his speed. Deku's last ability is his gear shift that allows him to change the speed and trajectory of other opponents and or objects. Meaning, if Aang were to try and blitz Deku, even though he's way slower, Deku would be able to react to and change Aang's trajectory almost entirely. So, with comparable continental levels of power and a clear difference in speed, what do you guys think? Personally, with versus battles like this, I try not to put my personal opinion into the equation, but I will say this. If you guys think that Aang's avatar state is such a big amp that it allows him to go from massively hypersonic to faster than light, then he may win. But if you don't, and you also think that Aang's energy bending won't work on Deku, then Deku should win, especially if you disregard the moon level stuff I mentioned prior, since like I said in my personal opinion, that may also simply just be wank. However, with that being said, please be sure to subscribe as it would be appreciated. Make sure to join the Pandemonium Discord server that sponsored this video, and till next time.